Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Eat, Drink, and Be Merry show, where we love to talk about food, drink, recipes, and techniques, and where to shop, taste, and play. Let's go. Hey, everybody. You know, here on our Eat, Drink, and Be Merry show, we love to have Chef Ivan Flowers on the show, giving us insight. We always have fun with him, because, we learn a whole bunch, but we got to have fun along the way. But he's joining us again today to talk about plating of food. And it is National Culinary Arts Month. And as you know, Chef Ivan is a 5-star chef. He's also a culinary instructor at Temecula Valley High School in Southern California. His last episode with us was phenomenal, talking about what the school does, teaching high school students about cooking, about the actual hospitality and food culinary industry. So I hope you catch that. In fact, I'll link that in the episode notes if you missed it, because I think it's just so important to teach youth how to go to a job interview and everything. But I know part of what he does is also teaches them, here's how to cook, but then here's how to put it on a plate that makes it exciting for the diner. So welcome back, Chef Ivan. How are you?
I'm very well. It's good to be back.
Yeah, and you're out of school right now. Like, you're on summer vacation. Is it cool to have some downtime?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, it's nice. Yes.
Yeah. Good. Get some coastal breezes, go beach walking and stuff. You guys are out doing that, right?
Yes.
How nice. How nice. So it's Culinary Arts Month. So happy Culinary Arts Month to you. And I think today's topic,
thank you,
really focuses on the art side of it, right? There's obviously the art of the cooking, but this brings in, when we're talking about plating, I have so many questions about this, because I think the plating can be everything, right? But when you go to create a dish, you obviously want to focus on flavor. But do you ever look at the ingredients and go, well, I'm going to swap this ingredient out because of the color scheme? Or so you look at it, do you look at it flavor first, and then what ingredients should I use over the other ingredients to make it presentable on a plate?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. When you're plating food, when you're a chef, when you cook professionally, or even when you're just cooking for people, the only thing that goes through your mind, in other words, if you were given a blank canvas and somebody said, we want you to paint a picture, there has to be, for you to paint a picture that's going to evoke, emotion, reaction, whatever it is, you've got to connect artistry, passion, and creativity with it first. So you never, ever, ever think about what a dish is going to look like. That comes a la minute in the moment you plate the dish. If you think, whatever the ingredients may be and how you're cooking them, if you're thinking about, okay, it's asparagus as a component, and I'm going to do a light steam with citrus, finish with garlic, a little bit on the grill, that's one component. Let's say you're doing another component, a baby potato. You bring it up in water that has black peppercorns, garlic, and a bay leaf. You know that you're putting flavor into the flesh of the potato. Let's say you're doing a beautiful piece of fish. Let's say a deep water Maine black bass, and you're going to crisp up the skin. So you know that the flavor is there. Every component is thought of with flavor for the person that you're cooking it for. The magic that happens, and it's really one of the main reasons I became a chef, is the plating. The plating happens in the moment. I never drew pictures. You don't make diagrams. It doesn't work that way. And a lot of times you can plate the same dish an infinite amount of times differently. You change things around. An asparagus might be split down the middle, and then you intertwine it with other asparagus, or you tie a knot on the top, and you make it stand up like a flower. It just happens. If you're putting a sauce on a plate, the sauce is so refined, it's called a mirror. And I most of the time use white plates. You want negative space as well. So you make it user-friendly. So the person that's eating it, like if you go to chain restaurants, they give you a plate and everything on the plate is covered with food. You don't want to do that. You want people to eat with the eye first, and then the image of the food has to be backed up with making it that delicious. And I know so many chefs that do the opposite. You know, I'm going to use this, I'm going to use that, and then they end up putting the kitchen sink on the plate, everything, and it's too much. It's a hard formula. It can be taught. It's done through practice. It's done through years of experience. But when a chef is plating food, and you see it when you watch videos and cooking shows, how they get into it. The shoulders come forward. The eyes go down. There's a bend at the shoulders. There's a bend at the hip. And they're creating something that is about to go to somebody who's going to see it and eat it. That's a big responsibility.
I love that you brought up the negative space. I mean, that's the same thing as what we talk about in magazine design is white space. We call it white space. You have to have white space so the eye can actually read the print. If you put so much text on a page, people are just going to be overwhelmed and like, we need pictures. You have to have that picture component. You have to have that space. Otherwise, the eye doesn't know what to focus on. You know, so you have to have that, like even in a soup, right? I like if someone makes a soup or a stew, you need to have something with a bigger chunk of something than everything being the even. Like if you make a chili, you have all the beans and the meat or something, but then maybe the meat is a bigger chunk of, you know, maybe it's steak cut up or something. So something has to differentiate from the beans in size and color, right? For a focus.
That is correct. Yes, absolutely. Yes. You need that contrast.
What about how you plate? Because like people are interesting about how they eat. Like people, let's go to Oreo cookies, right? There's people some people just eat the cookie. Some people take the cookie and separate it and lick the icing off and scrape it off that cookie. You know what I'm talking about? You know, everybody has these weird ways of eating. And sometimes you go to a restaurant and especially, you know, you get into the high end places and they're like, this is how you must eat this. And I kind of get pissy about that because I'm like, don't tell me. I don't, you know, that's just me.
I don't blame you.
It's just kind of like, it's an adventure. Like food and eating is an adventure and it's a conversation piece when you go to something like that. But it's, to me also, it's the design, like you said, you've got to kind of wing it because it's art and it's temporary art and you got to get it on the plate and not let it get cold and all of that stuff, right? And so, or cold, you want to keep it cold and not get hot, you know, so whatever it is. So there's this time that's ticking. So this is this temporary art form. And, you know, even public art has temporary public art. Like you could have a statue. We saw it in Santa Fe, New Mexico. They had this giant polar bear and then they took it away and they said, well, it was a thing about climate change. And yes, the polar bear starts to melt and that's it. It's gone and it's done. That's your temporary art piece with a huge impact for what they were showing, right? So food is the same way. It's temporary. However, when doesn't the plating also go by texture, not just by color and shape and size? There's got to be a texture of how you eat it and how you plate it so that, like, we always talk about this with you on the show. It's like when you eat something, you don't want it all to be the same, right? You want to have that layered effect maybe. Or sometimes you want to like all the same and then the layered, you know, whatever. It's like music. You need that dynamic. So when you plate, do you ever think about the texture side versus the shape and color?
It's all integral. It's all integral. As you're preparing the food, as you're preparing the dish, like for example, you talk about texture and flavor and mouthfeel, big one. I'm not going to serve a butter sauce with salmon. It's a fatty fish. So I'm not going to take a rich, oily fish and do it with butter. I'm going to do a base that's a little different that might have a little bit of vinegar in it, a little bit of citrus and herb that's going to cut through that fat. Then when the fat is in the fish, I'm thinking, okay, I left the skin on. So I have a crispy element. So the first thing, I mean, even the fork is important, okay? The silverware, the way it feels in your hand. They hit the fish and they get a crispiness. Then they go into that beautiful, beautiful, moist flesh. Then maybe they want to take a vegetable with that. Well, what kind of vegetable do you want to serve with that fish? Maybe I grilled, a leek with a little bit of smoked lemon. Now I have a smokiness. Ooh. Now I have, maybe a touch of vinegar running through a citrus with the sauce. Then maybe I have a creamy potato. Well, now what are we thinking? Crisp, creamy, acidic. It's all working together. Because if you watch somebody that's into food, the way they eat, and they take the time to put a little bit of everything on the fork to get that full bite, that's an amazing thing to see. Most people don't do that. They just kind of eat it very quickly and what have you. But when you plate, you're bearing your soul as a chef. You're putting it on the plate. You take it further, and then you say you have to train your cooks how to plate it the same way that you need it plated. And you just don't do that by saying, hey, listen, this is how I need it. You train them to think the same way you're thinking, and they get it. And then you allow them to start doing some of their own dishes as well. That's a healthy kitchen.
Oh,
that's a kitchen. That's where you're learning. That's a kitchen of adventure, excitement. That's how you do it.
Yeah. And because they could come up with something really killer, if you don't allow creativity to flow. It's the same thing as a band. So when we had our band, like someone would come up with some great lyrics. And if you didn't open it up to the band, like the guitarist may come in and say, hey, I got this lick, right? That is killer. And the band has to remember the structure when they get out and perform. They have to have that signature style. One of the best ways to learn is to be a cover band for a while, because don't try and play. Like if you do Freebird from Leonard Skinner and you screw up that guitar solo, you suck, period. You can't. Right. You need to have these specific licks, right? And there's just what is expected. And that happens like in a restaurant when you have signature dishes and it keeps changing, then it's not a signature dish anymore, right? If it keeps changing. And you can always have like a new special, like this is in season, And so if something's in season, then it's like, hey, that's what we got. And if a chef in the kitchen, a sous chef got it, hey, why not? It's cool. And it's exciting and it challenges people to come up with something new. I just in the whole texture and everything that we're talking about, there was a bed and breakfast and they've retired since in Three Rivers, California. They had this, it was outside Sequoia National Park. And so wife Leah, she would make these just healthy breakfasts. She always had a health spin on everything, and they were delicious. But her husband, Peter, has a very international background and grew up outside this country, but knew how to do fruit. I don't even get how he did it without. It was just like he was raised doing it. He's got a Malaysian background and then India and all these different backgrounds, but they would get whatever was local fruit, and where they are is like it's like the breadbasket of the world. So you could go down the street and get peaches, plums, everything, anything you want, right? From the farmer. And whatever was there, he would take it. You would wake up in the morning and he would have a fruit plate that looked like a piece of art. He would make little flowers. Right. It was just, and I looked at you, it's like, it was a whole other experience. And if you don't eat fruit, right. There's this moment of like, I don't want to ruin this. This is like a piece of art. Yes, and you eat it, and then you better eat it all. Like, you're not going to waste your food but he just did it like a second nature. There was no anything. It was just like, oh, look, this looks like this. Well, then we build on it. And it was just we went like for the fruit plates. And Leah can cook, right? And I did cooking videos and everything with her, but we were always, what's going to happen? Because every day was different with the fruit, every day, because of whatever was in season. And so he just took it, sliced it, had excellent knife skills, I suppose, to be able to do that. That's
garde manger. That's garde manger. Yeah, that's the art of garde manger. is being able to make food look like that, especially when it's like in the pantry and it's fruit and it's vegetables and you're carving them. I knew a chef once that on a large white button mushroom with the back of a paring knife sketched a trout jumping out of a river. And when he browned the mushroom, the entire stencil came out on the mushroom.
Mm.
It was mind blowing.
That's
yeah, it was
beyond
mind-blowing.
going to get your coffee, your latte thing, the foam and all of that. That's pretty amazing. That makes you go, wow, that's a whole other level, right? And it's temporary art again.
Yeah.
But the flavor has to back it up. If you have the art and you don't have the flavor, that sucks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
flavor is everything. Flavor dictates the plating. I've said this for almost 35 years. Flavor dictates the plating. I've used it, and when I was in the industry, I used it in school. Flavor dictates the plating.
Okay, so what about it's grilling season right now? So people are outside doing hot dogs, hamburgers, chicken, fish, all at kebabs, right?
Yes.
Now, kebabs, that is a great start, right? But don't you think there's something about grill marks that make us salivate? What is it? That's like a thing for flavor, but at the same time, you have a grill mark, so you can already taste it before you taste it by just having that char, that grill mark.
The char, the grill mark, knowing that it was cooked outside. I mean, when you pass a steakhouse or when you pass a burger restaurant and you smell mostly proteins grilling, it does affect the salivatory glands. You start to go, it's like you crave it. You get crazy for it. That's an extension of it, that symbol. But keep in mind, you can, a lot of people are like, it's got to be protein. You can grill nectarines. You can grill peaches. You can grill romaine for an incredible Caesar salad. There's so many other things that you can put on a grill, besides protein. You can grill lemons and make smoky lemonade. Ooh. I mean, and on and on and on.
Ooh, now I want a smoky margarita. Yeah.
Yes. Now
Doesn't
you're talking.
I know, right? Now, okay. So now that we're talking about that, does smell dictate the plate?
It has a lot to do with it. It has a lot to do with it. Think about it. If you drink or taste something and you touch your nose and you squeeze your nostrils together, you don't taste anything. So olfactory is huge. My wife always tells me I cook more with my nose than I do with my palate. Smell has everything to do with it. Smell will bring back memories. Certain smells that all of a sudden you smell, you go, oh my God, this reminds me of my childhood. What's going on here? All of it works together. All of it works together.
Now, what about color? So like if, say you got, so color, like some colors don't go that great together. So it gets interesting. So you may get like, those little small potatoes, the baby potatoes. And I've done those little baskets where they're all like different kinds, like they've got the red, the yellow, and the purple. Well, the purple cook different than the others. The purple can also almost go mushy if you're not careful. So I've had to learn, don't mess with the purple. Keep it whole, let the others be cut, right? Or you know what I mean?
Right.
So, and then I'm going, okay, then there's a side of me that wants to pull all the purples out and do something cool with the purple. And, I don't know, in the fall, it's cool to do those colors as well, but you got to watch what you're doing with your colors. And I think for kids, and I don't know if that happens with the teenagers and the high school students, does color intrigue them for plating when you're teaching them? Does that seem to be kind of a catalyst of inspiration to maybe eat this tomato if the tomato doesn't have that white look, that white half? I hate that tomato look. It's like it's not a real tomato, but if it's red and juicy, then you're like, ooh. Or if it's an heirloom tomato or an heirloom beet, all the heirlooms to me just kind of goes, wow, let nature do its trick and just don't overpopulate the plate with it. Let it just be fun and fanciful and just don't do too much on one dish, and maybe everybody will like it because it's different colors. So you could look at purples. Purple is weird to work with. Like those potatoes don't
it is
go
weird.
with the red. It may go with a carrot or a sweet potato, right? More than you know what I mean?
Yeah, people are not fond of purple food. So if you did a Peruvian potato puree and it was very purple, it doesn't work that well on a plate. There's some colors that people don't react to, like brown food when it's seared and it's charred is delicious, but you've got to balance it with some bright colors. Here's a perfect example. If you're doing baby vegetables on the side and maybe baby potatoes with them, you're doing carrots, you're doing Hawaii turnips, you're doing golden beets, and you're doing some fingerling potatoes. You cook them all separately. When you cook the vegetables, you actually do it risotto style with some of the pureed juice of the vegetable itself as you cook it. That adds incredible flavor to the vegetable. It's time consuming, but the finished product is 1,000 times better. It's a burst of flavor. Before you plate it, you either take a little demi-glace, and I mean like by the tip of your finger, or a touch of butter, and you saute it all together quickly. Salt, pepper, and fresh herbs, and you get a shine that when it hits that plate, not only does it have the shine, but the color becomes almost like jewelry, where it's like, oh my God. And then you taste it, and it's got the coating of the actual juice of the vegetable itself with the butter and the herbs and the salt, and it happens. Everything is a balance, and the more you do it, the more you learn this technique, the more it becomes natural. When it becomes natural like that, you can plate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich like, oh my God, why does this look so good? I don't know. Why does it look so good?
Well, because I do a lot of food photography, and I look, so with how things are plated is like, if I could do a rant on this in a way, because like how a sandwich is done, like people just put the sandwich closed on a plate, like it's cut in at an angle, like the diagonal thing, and then they keep it closed. Now, if it's open and you see the jelly come out and the peanut butter's thick, and you have that kind of like it's like a donut that was just bitten into, that's a photo. Right. And you can see it, and it's open and maybe piled on, one half on the other half, and just how you do it. But I always think like if people played it as though it was going to be photographed, right, up close, then maybe they would get it a little bit more. And you have to look at it from a distance too. How many times in a restaurant do you see someone order what somebody just ordered next to them because of what they saw?
All the time.
The smoke is rising. It's still sizzling like fajitas. It's got action. It's smoking. It's doing stuff still happening. People are like, oh, what is that? I want that.
Yes.
Even if it's nothing they've ever eaten before. They're like, I want that. Like Harry met Sally. I'll have what she's having.
Yes.
I had to go there. Sorry. But yeah, I think it is about, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich you can make so fun and fabulous. And I love that you talk about a white dish, because a lot of people have this like intense design on a plate, and then what they plate on the plate goes against the design on the plate, and the colors don't match. But simple white, you can do anything. Then some people will get those really dark plates, which can look actually dirty in a way. So like the hospitality industry, they do white sheets to prove the bed is clean. They have white towels to prove the towels are clean, so it's kind of that kind of clinical thing. But when you get a white plate that is clean and nice, with I don't know, the dark plates are weird sometimes to do. That's kind of hard to show off. Like if you have a dark sauce, you don't see what's going on. It's not transparent.
Well, keep in mind too, the plate itself a chef can look at a plate and it could bring them to what they're going to plate. Here's a perfect example. I used to do oysters on a plate differently every single night for 2.5 years. And they would go on a rock salt with Pernod and rosemary, and they were lit. And as it went through the dining room, you could see the flame as the server was carrying it. So I'm going to use a rectangular, long, white plate. I'm not going to go into a circular. I'm not going to go to a square, because I know that oval shape of that oyster will contrast the rectangular length of the plate itself. So a lot of times when I do tasting menus, all the plates are different. Pasta, I like to serve in a bowl that's very shallow. Very shallow. It's almost like a plate bowl, because then I will nest it and I'll have the pasta high. And it's just user friendly.
Yeah, it's easier with your fork.
Different plates. Yes, different glasses, right? All of it. I used to do, it was crazy, for bread, I had a long square plate, and it had 4 squares in it that were deep, and I would put out balsamic oil. I would put out like a pesto, and then Hawaiian rock salt. That was my bread and butter service. Oh, and butter. There was a 5th one to it. That was my bread and butter service. And that was laid in the table, and people were like, that's great. So if the ticket times went a little longer, they were happy to dip bread. They had 5 different choices in front of them, you know? So, and the plates that they have nowadays are like, oh my God.
Well, but I think that you're making a case also for how opposites attract, right? So it's like, don't try to make everything the same color. And it's kind of, I look at a plate kind of like landscaping your yard, because that's got a texture to it too. So you have a water feature that may be your sauce, you know, and then you don't want everything to look the same, you know, otherwise there's no excitement. There's no enticement. No. You can have a gradient, right? Does that make sense? Like go from light to dark of the same kind of color, and then have something that's like really pops with it. That's good. But I look at it like your yard, you know, you could have fountain grass, and then you have like something round in front of it, like a lantana. Sure. And it could all be colors that kind of go together, but like the lantana, like the fountain grass could be that brown purplish color, right? And it has a little hints of green. You have a lantana in front of it, but it's the lantana that's the orange and the yellow flower. And that goes together. They're not 100% opposite in that they detract, but they're within the same school of color. And the browns. Right. It's the same thing as makeup. So ladies, we have summer, winter, fall, and spring in our makeup of skin color, right? No matter what our skin color is, it's about the tone of our skin. It's really about, are you a summer or a winter? A winter is more of like a blue with a blue. It's about having a blue undertone. Summer is about having this yellow undertone. So if you take a piece of cloth on your skin, like blue, and then there's blues that have a yellow undertone, it's a little different, right? So you have to pick the right blue that goes with your skin tone, not the skin color as such, the skin tone. And so that's kind of the same to me about food is, you know, you could have a carrot that's almost on the red side that will actually work well with the tomato, because it's on that same, it crossed over to the red zone, which is more of the blue zone versus the yellow zone. Does that make sense? You know,
of course,
that was fascinating. You know,
well, also when you talk about garnish, okay, some chefs microgreens, and you know they're pricey and they're beautiful, and when you use them, you use a very small amount just to pop the plate. When I used to expedite on the line before the dishes went out, I had these square, deep muffin pans, and there was 20 to each pan. So I put 2 of them out every night. They were filled with different garnishes that you could finish a dish with. Some might be roasted confit tomatoes, confit garlic, microgreens, guanciale pancetta that was candied and finished with a little, little spice. All these different things that you just would hit the plate with that was edible. It's not a rosemary stick sticking out of a plate that you put to the side. It's something that finishes the plate, makes it beautiful, and is edible as well and adds to the dish. And every single night we would change it. Every night we did different ones.
what about this too, about the person cooking? And these spices go well with this dish, right? Like I'm going to go
Hmm.
back to chili. I love to make chili. However, I'm kind of weird. Like I know what spices work, and I tend to pick spice. Like I know, like you want this flavor profile, right? But as I'm
Hmm.
cooking, I'm actually matching the spice colors. I know that's weird because once they're all cooked together, that really doesn't make a difference. But I
Hmm.
cook it that way. Like turmeric. Oh my gosh, turmeric is such a vibrant color. It is
Hmm.
beautiful, right? And then you have this cumin that actually is kind of an opposite in a weird way, depending on what cumin you're getting, right? And it's so you get
Hmm.
into, and then I'll look at the chilies and the curry. I put curry and turmeric together. That's actually the thing. It is like I put curry powder in my chili. I'm that way because I grew up eating
Hmm.
that kind of food in Africa. But even the chili powders, I would look at the chilies and pick the chili color. Like it would, if you put the spices on the plate that you're going to put in the pot and you looked at them, it's almost like you want them to be friends, even though they're kind of opposite. Again, those
Yeah.
undertones. Does that make sense, or am I just really weird? Like I want to play with my food to make a good dish, but I'm already playing with colors that people aren't going to really see. It's weird.
No,
And you need
no,
a little
no. I don't
green,
think it. Yeah, well, green is always very important. You always need pops of color and pops of green, and it's what works. And playing with food is really what being a chef is. You do it your entire career.
Mm.
You try this, you try that. You can take a black plate and in a blender, you can take turmeric and powdered yellow mustard, and you
Oh,
blend it together and you put it through
mm.
a coffee filter. When it hits the black plate, it looks like day glow.
Oh,
It looks like
okay.
it actually glows on the plate.
I went to a bed and breakfast once, and the cook there, he's like a amateur chef, but I mean, he did amazing. He made smiley faces with eggs. Like he did deviled eggs that looked like eyeballs, but he made a little smiley face with okra and everything, and it was really good. It was so cute. It was like, and how could you can't be crabby when you have a smiley face on your food in a bed and breakfast, but it was done with in high class, And then
Yeah.
there's also plating that isn't all sophisticated. Like, you've got some great pictures and everyone you see that in the podcast art and um that are fanciful, right? Like little fans, like so it looks like coral and nice things, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like almost making a cake. But then there's stuff that is just absolutely messy and you want it to be messy in your plating. Like it's like a apple crumble. How fanciful can you make it? Do you want it to have that
Right.
crumble, but have the ice cream be the perfect scoop, you know?
Right. Yes. Yeah. You don't want it to be like a geometric perfection. You want it to be where it hits the plate. It's natural. Some of those crumbles should fall off. A little bit of that ice cream might melt down the side, just a little bit to make it look enticing. You're not putting it into a frame. The plate is the frame. The food is the picture.
Mm.
It's different.
Now, I always ate my vegetables. Like I'm a good vegetable person as a kid. There's a few things that get wonky, but I'm learning. Here's
Yeah.
what we used to do in South Africa, and I don't know if it was just a craze in the 80s or whatever year it was, but 80s, 90s, we would take like we'd have these big barbecues called braais, right? And I think back to now, what everybody would, like it would be like a potluck almost. Everybody always brought stuff. And there was always a potjiekos, which is a pot food. Kos is food. Potjie is a pot, like a Dutch oven. So it'd go underground or on coals, and it would be like beans and wieners, and it would or chicken, and it's like a gumbo, right? Whatever people had, they would empty their fridge into it. But it was slow cooked all day long in the ground and in this pot. And it came out really good. But you can't fancy that up. But we'd have pop, which is maize, like it looks like polenta almost, and depending on what African country you're in, depends, and what maize you're using depends on the consistency of it. So some is like pop and it's soft and people, I can't do it. But if it's kind of like dough, which is like in Kenya, we call it ugali, you'd have yellow and white, and you could actually pull it off and dunk it into gravies. And they did a lot of greens, like but it went with this gravy and stews, and
Oh,
it's
that sounds
peasant
delicious.
food. I know I'm homesick a little bit when I talk about this. But then there's this other, and they would do boerewors in South Africa, like, and they cooked sausage, and it's a very fatty sausage. So you think about a bratwurst or something like that, very fat. Like it's almost like boudin from Southwest Louisiana, because I think some of
Yes.
them even put a little rice, but it's fatty, fatty, fatty. And then they would dry it
Yeah.
into like a jerky, a drevorst. It was very good. And then,
Mm.
but the poppenvorst, they would have the pop, which is the mealy meal stuff, like the polenta, and they would have what was called train smash. They had this tomato stew, which is why I figured out why I have this love for salsa here. It's the closest I can get to it. And it was this, so you had all these colors, but it was like comfort food. But the salad,
Yes.
so you have salads, but back in the day, there was this trend, and I got into it. It goes back to that the fresh fruit thing that the friend Peter would make. You would take like a cookie tray and put tinfoil and covered in tinfoil, or you just had to have a base background. You don't want to plant like a pan, right? Don't forget we were in Africa at this time, so nothing was fancy. And we would take whatever vegetables we had and create a design. So it wasn't like your typical salad. Like you could have your bowl of greens, you put it down, and I think it was the way the parents were getting us kids to eat vegetables, but you would make a palm tree and you would have like leaves that were just pieces of like chives and green onions, and you would make like a painting out of the vegetables. And I don't know, I got so into making them as a kid too. It was like, what are we going to do? This is what we have, and you're creating a design. And I see people do that with focaccia bread now. It's kind of going through on this trend I always see on social media. So, what do you think about doing that kind of stuff? Does that still appeal to people? I mean, do we go through
Oh,
trends and like, oh, this is in now for plating?
well, yes. You always go through trends, and trends are good to look at. I think when you look at a trend, you, like anything else, as a chef or a cook, you look at it and then you put your spin on it. I wouldn't follow anything exactly, but there are some things that are quite remarkable. It's again, it's what you come up with. It's an individual thing. I'll give you a good example. A lot of people like calamari with marinara sauce. Well, back in the day, we used to take Thai calamari steaks, which are big, thick slices of calamari, and we would cut them into ribbons, and we would knit them like a pot holder, so it looked like a knitted pot holder. We would then take that and we put it in cornstarch with flour, and we would fry it very quickly, and it would kind of turn and bend a little bit and get golden brown. And we would put that onto a small copper pot that was filled with fresh marinara, and thread that on so it looked like the pot stick, like, what do you call it? Like when you pick up pots, oven mitt. So it looked like, the oven mitt was right there, and you would break it and you would dip it, So it's not a trend. It's something I came up with. Do I always look at trends? Sure, I'm always aware. But again, it's like anything else. When you look at something, you never copy. You get ideas.
Yeah,
it sparks your imagination.
It's really exciting. Like if you really think about what you have on hand, like, we used to take an avocado. We had those big avocados in Africa, like, monster ones. Everybody had them in their backyard. You cut it in half, right? And so you'd have the whole, like the center, but because these were really meaty, right? So you could create a salad, like an avocado salad, and then you put it back in the avocado skin, and you're eating that inside the avocado skin. So it's like It's fresh. You made it into like some kind of whatever guacamole, but would you do things like that? Actually use the casing of things of what it
Oh
comes
yeah.
in. So like, stuffed potato can be done like that too, where you fill the
Oh,
potato.
absolutely. Oh yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
use what
A
you
lot of people
have.
like it. Yes. Yeah. Like for example, shrimp heads, fresh shrimp heads, or langostino, or scampi, right? If it's a certain kind of shrimp, the head itself, if you deep fry it, you can eat it like a potato chip. Well, we were doing parties, we were doing dinners, we were taking prawn heads, and then we were finishing them with a stuffed lobster salad. Doing a light tempura very quickly, almost like a frito misto, putting it back in the head, and then serving the prawn, the tail with it. So you're getting this,
Exactly.
now I get crispy, now I get creamy, now I get the prawn. When you look at what you're serving, a lot of things that people throw away is actually, you might want to take a look at that, because you can do stuff with that.
Well, it's the same thing like in I don't know why I'm stuck in Africa today, but Kenya, Nancy would get like they would out on the beach in Malindi and not Mombasa, excuse me, these coastal resorts, right? And white sand beaches, you go swimming in the waters and it's in the 70s. It's just yeah, little tropical paradise, right?
Right.
But what they would do is pineapples grew everywhere in Africa, just like, they are not a native fruit to Hawaii. I'm just saying. But anyway, they're not just there, but like they're everywhere. I think they might be actually now that I think of it. We had a pineapple. One of the houses we had on the coast had a pineapple field, like miniature pineapples, and there were these
Right.
multicolored. It was cool. But anyway, they would make cocktails within the pineapple itself. They would take the
Oh
center out,
yeah.
and then they would make a straw hole, and then they would fill it up with brandy or rum and pineapple juice and let it
Ah.
soak. And so they do it with coconuts too. So you have the shell and the cocktail is inside the fruit itself, whether it's the coconut
Right.
or the
Right.
pineapple. They say put the lime in the coconut, but Nancy would be out on the beach and then the waiter would come running down with a replacement coconut or replacement
Right.
pineapple. All I can say is she had a good time. I was a little young for that, but mommy, look at you. You're drinking pineapple juice. She's like, yes, girl, you should try some
Yeah.
pineapple juice too, but not what mommy is having. But,
Yeah.
but to me, it becomes this big fanciful thing, but all you're doing is using the container, the vessel it came in, you know?
Yes,
I
which is
think that's
very
awesome.
important. Yeah. Well, it shows freshness. It shows the
Yeah.
product from start to finish. Hey, this
Oh,
isn't out of a can.
yeah. Oh, speaking of that, we were in Louisiana a few years ago and went to a Mexican restaurant there. And so it's a really interesting connection to Mexico. So this portion of Louisiana is known as no man's land. It's where, the Louisiana Purchase happened and the Battle of 1812 and all these wars happened. But there was this 3-year period in history where there was no law and order because no one told them who owned what. The French owned it one time. The Italians had one part. Texas owned part of Louisiana. It was a mess, right? But the food was great. And you also had all the Caddo Indians and the Native American culture. So there's this area, it's in the western portion. If you look at the state of Louisiana, the western strip from the top to the bottom, from Shreveport down, is this western neutral strip, right? And historically, the food is fantastic. And people don't yell at me, but go to the gas stations for food, okay? You will get like true, I know it's fried food and it's not healthy for you, but they are very creative about what they fry. And basically, they will fry anything and it's good and it's naughty. But they have a
Yeah.
gas station food trail. You can go on a gas station food trail. I'm
I love it.
serious. But it's convenient, right? They have boudin in
Right?
there and meat pies that come from Northwest Louisiana in a town called Natchitoches. This meat pie is like an empanada, but it passed down through all these different cultures. So Native
Yeah.
American, then you got the Spanish, you got the French, you got the African, the Creole. Everybody shaped this meat pie And wherever you go, like you can go and like, someone will have it selling them in a trailer in the woods kind of thing. And you go get them
Yes.
and it's going to be
Yes.
different than around the corner. They have tamales in a town called Zwali, and they have a Zwali Tamale Fest. And everyone was like, what you doing with Mexican food? Well, they actually they have a lot of Mexican influence because at one point, depending on the Louisiana Purchase time, there were a lot of Mexican families and Spanish there. So that's this. Oh my God. I know this has nothing to do with plating. I don't know why I went down this role, but this thing, but I wanted to talk about this pineapple and the plating of this. But anyway, so there's Wally tamales and they're thin. They're almost like a churro, right? And it was actually the Native American culture because they were using venison and pig because they have a lot of pigs and hogs, whatever hogs out there. So it's just not what you think of like in Baja, right? Where you are, Baja California
Right.
style, not Sonoran. This is Zwali tamales, and there's nothing like them anywhere in the world. There are these very
Yeah.
thin tamales, and it's a different flavor. In fact, it's almost you put the hot sauce on it according to your hot sauce, so they don't over flavor the tamales. It goes like the meat is it's completely different. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's just 100% different. It has
Yeah. Well, it
the
sounds
polenta
delicious.
stuff, the masa, right? It's the masa that's inside there.
Masa.
It's
Yes.
so it's not overly flavored, but you put whatever hot sauce you want according to what you get, and you get them
Mm.
from all gas stations included. It's a staple. Anyway, in the same vicinity of this is a town called Manny, and it's a river town, and they created this lake at Toledo Bend, and like trout fishing is huge. Bass and trout and bass is the big one, I think. Anyway, this Mexican restaurant, it's just so down home, easy. Um, they had like a Mexican band playing there. We felt at home. And they had pineapple fajita. And I was like, what the hell is this, right? I'm ordering it. This is
Mm.
different. They
Yeah.
took a pineapple, took the center out. They grilled the pineapple upside down. So the core part, the center where you took, they halved it. So it went from the green tuft at the top, and they kept the green
Right.
tuft all the way down, open it up, scoop the inside out, grilled it. Oh my God.
Mm.
Seriously. And I had chicken. And it was like the meat was marinated with the pineapple and spice.
Oh
Oh,
my
and they
God.
seriously, but it was in a pineapple and it was like,
Yeah.
it worked. It was delicious.
Well, the natural sugar from the pineapple, remember, sugar is a tenderizer. So the natural sugar from the pineapple tenderizes the meat, and then you caramelize the pineapple, which has that wonderful sugar in it. And there you go. You're on your way.
See, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And they used what it came
Yeah.
in. So you knew,
Yes.
and it was sizzling and smoking, and everybody was looking at us and like, it's mine. You can't have it. It's mine.
Yeah.
And it was one of those dishes that everybody in the restaurant goes, I want that. You could smell it. It was like, wow. And Nancy and I were looking at each other. I think she had enchiladas, and then she's like, well, I don't know, kind of want that. But,
Yeah.
we always want each other's food. It's terrible. So we always order it different because that way we can
Called
taste it all.
sharing.
But
Yeah.
yes,
Yes.
but that's the thing. So I feel like sometimes just look at like the food that you're cooking and how you plate it should also just be of what you're cooking. Not always,
Yes.
don't try and take fajitas and be fancy with it. It's not going to work, right? So you have to kind of
No.
look at what the dish is, right? So that's what I wanted to
Yes.
get to.
Yeah.
It's like, what is the dish and
Yeah.
what can you use to show tribute to the ingredient? Because I feel like we should honor
Yes.
ingredients because some people don't know what pineapple looks like. They should by now,
Right.
but
Well, less is more. Less is more. An example is when I was in the industry and we were doing really beautiful sea scallops. We not only had the purveyor come in, we had the people that were catching them and diving for them and the ones that were fishing for them. So cooks understood, not only with that, but, ranchers, farmers, what they were cooking and what it took for it to get to them, to the restaurant. Because people forget. It's Here it is. I'm going to cook it. Well, there's a story that's connected to all of this. How this came, how it was planted, how it was raised, how it was harvested, all of it. When you have respect for the product, when you have respect for food, you have respect for the entire industry. From when it starts to the people involved in it, it's like Sideways when she's talking about wine, and she talks about how the people harvested it and how probably a lot of them have passed on, and what went into the wine and how it changes not only every day but every couple of minutes as it sits in the glass. That's how you look at food. That's kind of how you look at life. A lot of people don't, but some people do.
Speaking of wine, okay, so what about you're making this dish look beautiful, and people, when they go to a restaurant, typically order what they want to drink, whether it's a rum and coke or a cocktail or whatever. But if you look at the full experience, like if you go for a special kind of dinner, and sometimes there's shots involved with a meal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right? There's like a shot of, it could be just a juice, it could be alcoholic infused, whatever, but sometimes it's just like a soup shot. Like, it's interesting, like that kind of thing. But if you're going to a dinner that is curated, like a wine pairing dinner with a winery, do you look at the food? Of course, you want it to pair with the wine, but do you also, not just in the taste, look at the color of the wine and the food and pair it to the color of the drink? Or does it matter?
No, it doesn't. No.
Okay.
It's really the wine and the food. I think if you went in that direction, it would take you off course.
That's when you get too picky.
It's not a consideration. Yeah, it's not a consideration.
Okay. That's it, because that's the level of, like, when Nancy, like, she's an artist. She paints wildlife, and she does these amazing collages and all of that. And so when she paints, like she says, there's always this level of, you need to just stop, because you start picking it apart. And in a restaurant scene, you don't have time to pick it apart. Like, you've got the head chef that could, but you can start picking things apart. The food's going to get cold. You're losing time is not on your side. And as an artist, though, who's taking their time, maybe drinking wine, you need to actually back the hell off, because when you start getting into that critical zone, which you still have to have a critical zone so you can improve and do better and fix mistakes. But then there's the zone above the critical zone that is true criticism and true improvement, and not now demolishing what you just created. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Sometimes
it's called going too far. Yeah. It's the kitchen sink.
Oh, okay. There it is. Okay. Now I have to ask you, I think we did good on this topic. I love this topic. I just want to play with food now. I'm going to go create something. I think I like the whimsical things too. I think it's fun. And I think people should have fun with food, but it depends on the setting and the vibe, but have you watched The Bear?
I have not. We don't have Hulu.
Okay.
We don't stream, but we're going to try to order it. I've watched some clips on the computer. My students watch it quite a bit, and I understand it's absolutely phenomenal.
It is, because as soon as when you were talking about the plating and how a chef bends down, looks at it, that's what you see. And from what I've heard with all my restaurant friends, it's like, that's the reality. And I've been in the industry, and it's like, it is like that. And people do swear at you. And you talked about that on the last podcast. Like, you go Gordon Ramsay on the students once in every few weeks, just to remind them that when they get in the workforce, you cannot burst into tears every 5 minutes when someone, gives you a hard time, So
you keep in mind, though, also that could get carried a little too far. I don't know if you remember the famous chef Charlie Trotter.
Oh, yes.
He was, Charlie Trotter was groundbreaking.
We did the interview on his documentary. He's up on our site.
Yeah.
We watched the documentary and an interview about him, and he was a badass. Am I allowed to say that? I am.
Yeah, but he drove himself insane. He drove himself to the grave. I mean, it gets to a point where if you carry that too far, you can go into an environment that it's just, everything gets lost, and you've got to have parameters. We're not cooking for starving people. We're doing food the best way we can, as with the creativity and the imagination. But he got so carried away,
dude. I'm going to link that in the show notes, everyone, because that documentary people should watch, because even Anthony Bourdain said even the chef community used him, learned through him, and he's the one who started making things more Michelin star, right? He obsessed he went beyond obsession, almost, I would say, paranoia.
Well, and insanity. Have you seen the movie The Menu?
Yeah.
Have you watched The Menu?
No, I'm going. Is that the same thing as what we had on our site? I think. Okay, I'm going to go.
You have to watch the movie The Menu. You have to watch The Menu, and it's just and just hold on. Just when you sit on the couch, hold on. Have a pillow and just hold on.
Well, the documentary we recorded, and everyone, I'll put that in the link, is Love Charlie, the rise and fall of Chef Charlie Trotter. That documentary, it was all the chefs that he trained, and they went out and started competing against him, and he trained them. So he got pissy about it. He's like, listen, and then Anthony Bourdain went and just trashed like the magazines that were being rude to him. And when he fell, like he had heart attacks. It's true. You can't that's where you go too far, right? The kitchen sink. You can't go too far. You have to know when to call it uncle, and say, hey, this is enough. And that's the thing. I see people do that with, oh my God, people doing their own websites. And all of a sudden, every few paragraphs is a different color. No, stop it. Stop it. In design, less is more. It is. Just keep it simple. And if it's a messy food, allow it to be messy and make it like unique. Put the fajita stuff in the pineapple. Do something fun like that, because it gives it a structure.
Yes.
Give the messiness a little structure, and it goes far. It's the same as music, art, design. And when people look at photographing on their cell phones and taking selfies, look at how you're doing your design, your composition. It's the same thing, right? And how you compose a photograph is the same thing on a plate, except for you got texture and taste to really deal with. Yeah. All right. So what are you going to do with watermelon? Before we go, I'm going to say to you, it's watermelon season. So you get this shipment of watermelon. What are you going to do with it? And how are you going to plate it so it is appetizing to folks who may never want watermelon and don't know that they want this?
Well, I think one of the pictures I sent you, regular watermelon, if I was in my 20s, I'd put a bottle of vodka in it and start dancing on tables. But besides that, a little bit of lemon and salt. But what I did was, when in season, coming out of the Chesapeake Bay out of Maryland, I took soft-shell crabs, did a light tempura, and stuffed them with lobster. Put them on top of a beautiful piece of squared-off watermelon and made a spicy watermelon broth. So you had the crispy, hot crab with the creamy lobster boursin, which is the French garlic herb cheese, the cold watermelon, and then the spicy broth made from the watermelon juice. That's what I do, especially this time of year. This is the season.
Spice and any kind of... I put black pepper on cantaloupe. I know we talked about that before. Like, I'm weird.
Oh, yeah. It's good like for you. It's an antioxidant. You kidding me?
Yeah.
Pepper away. Make sure you do. Oh, let me give you a tip. Grind it fresh, but when you get pepper, get whole peppercorns and roast them in the oven. The oils come to the top, let them cool, put them in your pepper grinder, and your pepper will taste very different.
Ooh. Oh, it's
so much better. It's so much better.
Ooh, That is, you know what? Because I'm into this thing now where I want to make my own. Like I've seen this thing where people are making their own crackers out of pepitas and sunflower seeds and things like that. And I'm allergic to tree nuts, so granola and trail mix. It's hard to find something decent. So I feel like I'll go to our friends, the Peanut Patch, we always do this on their show, right? With them, I'll go get peanuts, get the pepitas, the sunflower seeds, the raisins, or whatever. And I want to make my own. And I feel like the spice, if you're going to do this and you bake it in the oven, right, into like a
Hmm.
kind of a cracker, kind of, you're making peanut brittle basically, but it's not peanut brittle.
Right.
I want it savory. And you can have a little sweet because of the raisins and maybe some medjool
Sure.
dates in there
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
put some spice like you're taught. So I wonder about that now if I do the pepper like that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
You can take food anywhere you want it. What I always say to the students is don't let the food control you. You control the food. You can take it anywhere you want it, and it's infinite, infinite where you
Uh,
take it. I mean, that's the beauty of culinary arts. That's the beauty of cooking. That's the beauty of it. That's why I teach. That's why I went into it. When I was a little kid and my dad had the Rendezvous in New York, and he would do a club sandwich instead of three, he'd do four layers and turn them around. So it was like
that's what I was talking
four
about. Yeah.
triangles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was sitting in the middle of the plate, and the fries came up in the middle like flowers,
Yeah.
and the bread
Oh,
was toasted to perfection, and the meats and the tomato, and all of it, and all you wanted to do was eat this sandwich. That did it. From that point on, I was done.
well, look at the Outback Steakhouse and the blooming onion. Everybody wanted the blooming onion because it was the presentation of it and it was
Yeah,
shareable. You know what I mean? They
yeah,
wanted the blooming
yeah.
onion. I don't know if they
That
still
brings
do it
back
or,
it brings back a very bad memory because my
oh,
first wife would eat the entire blooming onion, the whole thing,
oh,
by
that's
herself,
not
and then
good.
ordered the
Oh,
biggest prime rib, and then drink the jus. And I said, it's not real jus; it's like salt through the roof. So when I hear blooming onion, I get tight.
but you know what I mean about the bloom though. Like it's like
Yes, I
this.
do.
Everybody wants the bloom just to see what the onion looks like. It's like they did it. They
Right,
made that. Okay,
they
so
made it. Huh?
that's the thing. Okay, now one more last. I know we got to go, but all right. I know that you worked in the airlines as a chef too. So, how do you make airplane food appetizing? Is that a reality? Is it ever a reality? Like, how do you
In the
do?
old in the olden days, when they would even serve food, okay, it was very different because they had a big budget. So they would use very, very good product. I mean, if you're going to fly the Emirates, if you're going to fly Air France first class, okay, they're going to use top of the line stuff. They kind of cater it out. They cryovac it. They have the ovens on the plane, all of that. But for the most part, airplane food now is, the bottom of the barrel, as cheap as you can make it. If they even offer it at all, you're lucky to get a pack of nuts. It's changed a lot. Nothing really is what it used to be. On the cruise lines, people used to go just for the food, for the buffets, for the dinners. I know people that went on top of the line cruises where they took pictures of the food, and I went, oh my God, they're serving this? It's just, food costs a lot of money. Cost of goods with food is expensive. Labor is expensive. And, you have chain restaurants putting out deals for, $12.99. They're not using top of the line product anymore. What they're doing is putting a bunch of stuff on a plate, covering the plate, and hoping that you come back.
Yeah.
And they make money on the soda. It's different. It's just not the same.
Mm. But I want to say this too, like for a family on a budget and food prices have not been great. It's been hard. But I think creativity will help you through low budget times, being
Yes,
creative with
yeah.
it. And the plating is fun about it. It's like sometimes Nancy and I go, it's an interesting meal coming. And she's like, okay, what's happening? And so sometimes my vision of plating worked. And a lot of times it's like, oopsie, So then we look at it and we'll go, okay, well, because you do. And if I even say, so sometimes in plating, it means shut your mouth too, because I already ruin it by going, oh, I screwed up. Right. So sometimes just shut up. Don't even say it because you've already ruined it for the person you're feeding. Like I have to learn that. I need to learn to shut up. But honestly, and don't add that in the comment, everybody on YouTube, right? So
Right.
don't you dare. No, but honestly, it is it's interesting because you can make things fun. Like you can in it's like if you're making deviled eggs, you know, add a little
Oh,
paprika. Simple as that,
oh,
right?
oh,
Just
yeah.
just that little sprinkle does something. It makes a deviled egg that just has you can use a what do you call it? The icing thing. So it has a little swirly whirl and then put the paprika on and that's cheap and that's not going to, it's a little more effort. But if you're low on the budget, heighten the creativity, I say, for yourselves and for your family.
Yes.
Even if you're cooking for yourself, enjoy that because, a chicken laid that egg. Somebody
Right.
went, people went through sacrifice for whatever you're eating, and you're putting
Yes.
your energy in. So you might as well just do that extra step. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes I don't at all, a lot of times, but when you do, it does actually feel good, to plate it
Mhm.
and go, let's just do these extra things, you know? And sometimes I hate to say it, but sometimes canned peaches work better than fresh. I hate to say that, Chef
Oh, yeah.
Ivan, but it
Yeah.
is true, right?
No, hey, it depends on the dish. I love canned peaches. And plus what you're going to do with the syrup, with the sauce you're going to make, the reductions, the glaze
Ooh.
that you can make from it, on and on.
I like this. We always use things, right? Use everything that you can from one ingredient. Use the
Yeah.
pineapple as a boat, use the avocado as a boat. I love
Yeah.
this. I think we should
Yeah.
boat everything. I'll open a
Yeah.
restaurant called Boat Inn. So, like, we'll have deviled eggs,
Right.
that's a boat. Deviled avocados,
Right.
that's a boat. I'm going to boat
Right.
everything. Potato
I remember
boats.
once. I remember once making poke, really good ahi poke, and serving it in a tuna fish can as a play on tuna.
Really? Now, would you
Sure,
do
with
that
a
with
little
spam?
demitasse pork.
Would you do that with spam?
Oh, you could do a lot with spam. People are nuts for spam.
Oh my
You
gosh,
could,
that was everywhere in South Africa. Spam
yeah.
in a can. And you had to twirl the thing on the sides. You remember that with the little, like
Mm-hmm.
that little key thing and you twirl
That
at the
key.
top?
I remember.
Oh
I
my
remember
God.
they have spam in California. Like when you buy razors and they're in the plastic thing, you have to bring them to the register to unlock them. They have spam now in plastic where you have to bring it to the register to pay for it, where they take it out of the container because
No.
so many people are putting it in their pocket. Yes,
Oh
yes,
my gosh, that happens for eye drops in some states. You go get eye
yeah.
drops. And dude, we're in a weird world. But listen, keep making boats. That's all I have to say. Ivan,
Okay.
thank you so much. It has been so much
Oh,
fun.
my
And
pleasure.
can't wait. This is one of the most fun topics because you can go anywhere.
Oh, good.
And a creative mistake is fine. You're allowed to make
Oh, yeah.
mistakes.
That's how you learn. Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
you learn.
Don't be a Charlie Trotter unless we want you alive.
No, believe me, I was there for a number of years at one point in my career, and you know who brought me out of that was my wife.
Oh,
My wife, I remember if somebody if a server put a fingerprint on a plate, I'd be like, goodbye. I
yeah.
was crazy.
And at the same time, it's a hard thing because I think we all get that way in our industries over like perfection and drive. It's drive and passion, but it can go off that extra rail, which
Yeah.
I think anybody who's driven has done it. And you just go like, I know it from us. Our industry of magazine publishing back in our day when we started, dentists and publishers had the highest suicide rate. And because of the deadlines and the costs involved, and I'll tell you, when you first came on a show, Tracy, when you guys were out in Arizona and stuff, that was, I don't know how many years, it's almost like 20 years ago now, thinking about it.
Yeah.
And we were going through all that. The stress of it is massive. And the stress of chefs is the stress of a chef. And that's why let them have their tattoos and their cocktails afterwards. Damn it. And their cigarettes.
Right.
People go off. Just shut up and let them be. Let them have their cigarettes outside, because if they don't, they're going to put something on your plate. Like, just there's times, plating can get interesting in that too. You could just go, oh yeah. I remember in Kenya, we had a friend that came over and didn't understand the African way, right? American tourist brain. Horrible, the ugly American, the epitome of the ugly American. Didn't get a cold beer, sent it back. Like Nancy and I are horrified. And I was a little kid. I didn't know much more, but I knew this is not how you treat these people. And and needless to say, we're not friends with this person anymore. Anyway, kept demanding the ice cold, right? And if you don't, because he was an accountant, I'm going to do the books of your hotel and turn you in. Katie doesn't give a damn. Are you kidding me? What are you, what? Okay. So anyway, he keeps carrying on. So they brought him a beer in the bottle and went into the freezer and took an icicle and stuck it in the bottle and sent it to him. Here's your cold beer, you dumb American. So I thought that was pretty funny. And he's like, I'm going to send you to the tax people in Kenya. That's funny. God. That's hysterical. So really, like, if you don't, just leave chefs alone, leave the wait staff alone. It's hard work. Be nice.
Leave the publishers alone. Let them do their thing.
Yeah, don't mess with me anymore.
I remember what she went through. Oh, and still goes through.
Yeah,
that's a thankless job.
It is, all of it, so I just think we should be a little nicer. And when someone plates something nice for you in your house, they cook for you, and maybe it's a little sloppy, who cares? Like, love on a plate, you can't beat. That is just, it is caring, and, and mistakes happen. And I say embrace it and use the word interesting. It's our favorite word when it comes to my cooking. And sometimes it really works. And sometimes we go, well, don't do that again. And we don't.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. Take care, Chef Ivan. Thanks so much. And talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us here on Big Blend Radio's Eat, Drink, and Be Merry show. Keep up with our podcasts at bigblendradio.com and our magazines at bigblendmagazines.com.